All right. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Kristen. I'm moderating the technology. If you could go ahead and make sure that you are muted, it looks like everyone is. Thank you very much. We will open it up to Q&A at the end. If you have questions as we go, please feel free to submit them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and let Margaret Kirkland come in. And Margaret, let me give you controls here. We will switch presenters about halfway through, and at that point, I'll pass it on to Lori. Margaret, you should have controls here now.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening for a discussion of the Fernandina Beach 2045 Comprehensive Plan. I'm Margaret Kirkland, and I'm here with some members of the group that has been working on this. The group includes Beth Foster, Pam Green, Lori Hemke, Betsy Hubin, Christine Gerblon, Ann Kemp, myself, Alexandra Lejeune, Lynn Pannone, and Shamira Wiest. So, well, okay. So we are this working group. We're just citizens who are concerned because we understand the importance of the comp plan and the land development code for the future of Amelia Island. And we want to move forward the input that we got in April of 2019 in the city's EAR public input sessions. This group was formed by Amelia Tree Conservancy, but it represents a much broader scope of our community in terms of affiliation and interest. Our plan is to work on both the Nassau County and the Fernandina Beach plan. So we'll see how that plays out. Somehow I'm not able to control the slides. Okay. Our approach has been to review other plans in Florida, certainly not all, city documents, county documents, to update ourselves on relevant content and to get input from experts in the community on certain topics, and that has been most helpful, and we express our appreciation to those who have contributed. We view this as building on the 2030 comprehensive plan, and we realize that a lot more research is needed and a lot more expertise. Next slide. Okay, so the part that I'm doing today is the introduction. This will be followed by the first goal. And first of all, for those who don't have any background with comprehensive plans and city documents, I want to give a little overview. The most critical documents in any Florida city really are the city charter, the comprehensive plan, and the land development code. And the charter is broad. It focuses mostly on the structure of government, the powers of certain offices and functions. And that is adopted by the people through referendum. And we've just finished that process in the city, and the referendum is coming up in a matter of days. People should be receiving ballots so they can vote for or against the amendments on that. The comprehensive plan is what is really the top level serious legal document for the city. It's required that the state have one, that the counties have one, and all municipalities. It includes plan for development, land use, transportation, and an array of other topics that a particular area may perceive as essential. And this is part of a 20-year cycle for long-term planning and growth management. This is adopted, of course, by the commissioners, elected commissioners, as is the Land Development Code. And the Land Development Code provides the specific policies, very specific policies that enable the city to implement the comprehensive plan. So those are the three critical documents. In terms of our, next slide, please. Yeah. In terms of our comp plan, the current 2030 comprehensive plan, it has won a lot of awards, and so that's a great thing. Unfortunately, it is written in a style that is rather aspirational, and that makes it a little hard to enforce. The other issue is the fact that the Land Development Code was never updated to match it, and so those are challenges that we need to overcome at this point. The city revision process thus far, it has assigned the process to the Planning Advisory Board. As I mentioned previously, we had this wonderful input from citizens in April of 2019. The city put out a request for qualifications from consultants and went through a review process for those consultants, and now the city is involved in some negotiations. Meanwhile, there were 3 legislative mandates that came from the legislature, and Northeast Florida Regional Council helped the city to respond to those in a timely manner. One was seasonal populations, one was peril of flood, and one was water supply facilities work plan. As we get into details with other elements, we'll see how these things interface there. From the last 2, we can see the priorities that we now have in Tallahassee for environmental issues. Next slide, please. Yeah, so our context in Fernandina Beach is that we live on a barrier island, and therefore we are facing a number of hazards. Changing weather patterns, which everyone on the planet is facing, flooding from heavy rain events. We've seen lots of examples of that during the past year. Sea level rise, and I want to interject here that Fernandina Beach has been documenting sea level rise since 1897, so we should have a sense of where reality is on that. According to Andre Desailly, somewhere between 8 inches and 6.1 feet by 2100. That's a huge range, so we'll have to see what happens with that. In terms of storm surge, we've already seen some evidence of higher storm surges in the last few years, even without a major hurricane, but simply tidal events. Most of Amelia Island would be impacted by a Category 1 surge. This is according to a recent vulnerability assessment that the Balmoral Group did for Nassau County. And the next slide I have is the map that shows the gray crosshatching is Cat 1, Cat 2 is the light, very sort of gray blue, and the brighter blue is Cat 3, and so on. So we see that we need to be prepared. Next slide. Oh, okay. So Maybe I can control my slides now. Okay, good. Addressing sustainability and resiliency, that's what we need to focus on. The state and many Florida cities are working on this now, appointing chief resiliency officers, appointing committees, developing concrete plans, and working to get grants to support implementation of those plans. The city has also been gradually increasing its efforts. They have updated their code in terms of FEMA regulations. They are working on a seawall down at the marina. A lot of work has been done on stormwater management and so on. So there has been a lot of work initiated, and we would like to see that effort elevated to a stronger level of preparation at this point, and a long-term plan, in-depth long-term planning. The comp plan itself is the first opportunity we've had to address this in a holistic manner, and that is what we feel is essential. Our worldview on sustainability and resilience, so that we're all talking about the same thing here. In terms of definitions, there's the well-known UN definition of sustainability, which we also have in our current comp plan and vision statement. Our group particularly likes the definition that's in the charter of the UCLA Sustainability Committee. So I'll read that. The integration of environmental health, social equity, and economic vitality in order to create thriving, healthy, diverse, and resilient communities for this generation and generations to come. The practice of sustainability recognizes how these issues are interconnected and requires a systems approach and an acknowledgement of complexity. So that's just a little more detailed, but the same general concept. In terms of resiliency, I think we all know that whether it's the environment, the economy, the community, or individuals, it is a matter of being able to rebound after some disruption or disaster. So there are three typical types of sustainability and resilience that are discussed. One is environmental, one is economic, and one is social. And we feel that these are highly interdependent and interconnected, and that is important for us to be thinking about. The traditional view of the relationship between the economy and the environment has been something like this sort of zero-sum game. As we've seen it all across the country and around the world, but we're very familiar with this here in this community. If it's good for the economy, it's bad for the environment. If it's good for the environment, it's bad for the economy. We need to move on and get beyond this, because this is not helping any of us. The view that we find out there in current research is more of systems integration, interdependent synergy. Yes, the environment is critically important, and if we don't have a sustainable environment, we won't have a sustainable community or a sustainable economy. But at the same time, we need a sustainable economy to support a sustainable environment, and we need a solid community to support all of that. So this interdependence, I think, is critical, and I'm hoping this will hold us together as a community to come up with the best possible plan. In our community, we think about when we think about our assets and the character of our community, we think about our beaches, our dunes, our tree canopy, our marshes, the wildlife we have, the fabulous birds that really make so much difference in our lives. We think about our rich, diverse history, having been under 8 flags. So we have written history, and we have the history that is built into our physical environment, and we have our cultural history. We also think about our small town charm, which many people tell us is what brought them here. We're an artsy community and also a bit quirky. How many places have a shrimp drop for New Year's Eve, or have on Black Friday have a giant pajama party downtown? How many people have, how many towns have fully upstanding citizens running around in pirate attire? So all of these things are parts of our sense of place, the character of the town. And these features are assets. And I mean assets in the term of having a monetary value. So our sense of place is the foundation of our economy, to our minds. So what constitutes an asset beyond the usual accounting forms? These 2 broad categories that I've talked about, the environmental resources, the character of Fernandina Beach, we can consider the value of those for our economy and for our community. There are a number of cities that have developed alternative ways to account for such assets. A couple of examples: Raleigh, North Carolina, Seattle. There are a lot more, and they are using metrics that have been developed in recent years by organizations such as the Global Reporting Initiative, the Sustainability Accounting Board, and the International Integrated Reporting Council. So that's something that if you haven't seen that, you may want to do a little research on that. It is a way that we can actually acknowledge and take into consideration in our planning the monetary value of these assets. Okay, back to the comp plan. We will be going through today, in addition to the introduction, we'll be going through our first goal, which is restoration of public trust. And then the rest of the goals that we have tackled will be handled in the subsequent webinars. But we put together a vision statement. It is based on the current vision statement, but has some of the details that relate to the definition of sustainability that I mentioned earlier, and to some of the other materials that we have supported from research in recent years. So the City of Fernandina Beach will maintain environmental, social, and economic sustainability and resilience. As a model of good stewardship of the natural assets of our barrier island, Fernandina Beach encourages development of the quality of life and success of our community without increasing size or density. The city will utilize innovative strategic leadership to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The city will also engage and incorporate diverse input from city and island residents, community and business leaders, and seasonal visitors in such a way that honors the historic, environmental, and cultural features of the city. So that's something I'd like for you to think about. We will ask you about this when we have the question period. We'll also be sending out some questions to registrants, and we hope you'll respond with your thoughts on this, because I'm sure the city would like some feedback as well. Right now, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. This is goal 1. It's a new goal that did not exist before, but because of the circumstances in our country right now, we thought we should add it. And the presenter is Lori Hemke, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Lori, you're on mute. Sorry, Lori.
So you can hear me better when I'm unmuted. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to get us started on goal 1. And I want to review just a little bit about the 13 elements or 13 goals of the comp plan. One thing I want to just remind you, and Margaret did too, is please, as we're going through this, make sure that you're jotting down your questions or your thoughts so that we can address them either through the chat at the end, or if you're watching this after the session is over, that you can still get your questions answered. We currently have 13 elements. This one is new. And when you take a look at what our total document is and you compare it with the 2030 plan, you'll see not only an addition with this particular goal, but you'll also notice that we've reordered some. And I think that will become clear as we go through all the 4 elements. One piece that we did for all the goals or elements was to really take a look at ensuring that the goals were measurable and that there was someone or a department that was responsible for the goal so that we could really look at what's attainable. Each goal has objectives. That's pretty standard. It's set aside for us by the state. And each objective has policies. And even with those, we really did a lot of work on the measurement piece of it and accountability. As Margaret, as Margaret talked about, the discussion about public trust just kept coming up as we did our work. It's been very evident, of course, on the national level, but we also started hearing and reflecting on what's going on in the city as well. On the national level, and we took a look at the background data and analysis, because in thinking about writing a goal, we wanted to follow the same framework as the goals and comp plans have done in the past, which is to take a look at the research. What does research tell us? What does current data tell us? And what is our thinking behind all of that? In looking at the national data, and this will not surprise anything, that you will see that there's been a decrease in public trust. There's data that's even up just earlier this week that confirms and takes a look at that. And you can see that in September of 2020, one of the surprises is the drop in trust level in local governments. And that's surprising because it's not atypical for people to have a distrust on a national level, but typically people have a trust level with their local government and local elected officials. To our city's credit, to staff's credit, they have really monitored the trust status. And 2 surveys that I would draw your attention to in 2017 and 2019 actually showed the decline in the areas that you can read. A couple of other pieces that we looked at in terms of, you might think of it as soft data, but we felt as though it was important to take a look at, is that we see significant sectors of our local government, our local population, that are not actively involved in our work. We also notice that there's a lack of diversity in our city leadership, and that includes elected officials. And then lastly, we want to call attention to What we know is that we have city and business employees that live outside of the city limits, but they're contributing to the economy, but they don't have a vote in our city elections. So from there, I want to re-emphasize this interdependent nature that we looked at. We have our society, our environment, our economy when we think about sustainability. But we've added one more circle to our Venn diagram, and that is public trust. And what we see is that the public trust is really a major piece of all the elements. So once you do your research, you start thinking, how can we reverse this local trend? The first thing is what you've seen from the survey that the city has put out, and that is we've recognized that we have a problem. And when you have a problem, then you can start addressing it. One way is that we want to articulate those high standards and those best practices that are already being implemented. So allowing staff and recognizing staff for the job that they are doing. One of the things that we talk about with our barrier island is that we've grown very quickly. And we talk about the strain on our natural resources, but it's also been a strain on our staff resources. So we need to look at what research is out there to support improving our trust and our work. We know that, for example, that we have the Sunshine Law that's there that helps to hold staff and commissions and boards accountable. But we view that as an outside or top-down measure. Most of what we're proposing are measures that really look at becoming more broad and strategies that become embedded in our work. Lastly, I would point out that this was a theme that was brought up quite a bit in the ERA meetings that we've referenced before in April of 2019. Because we are a barrier island, but we're also made up of city and county residents. And so often what people talked about is that a public notice would go out to a county resident, but not to the city resident who's right next door, and vice versa. So that people on the barrier island are feeling disconnected in terms of those communications. So part of what we're looking for then is that to let go of those boundaries in terms of notification and communication and transparency. We also took a look at public trust through the eyes of the Florida Constitution. So the Florida Constitution also states that the city must maintain high standards for government accountability. And these are the areas that we would find. So based on all of that, we created this new element to address the public trust. Oops, I think I went too fast. Can I make it go back, Kristen? Yes. I wanted to give you a chance to read the goal for public trust and citizen participation. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to give you a moment to read it yourself and to think about, as you're reading it, what words or phrases jump out to you in terms of what's important. Moving on. As I said, each goal has objectives. These are the 6 objectives that we've crafted for public trust. For tonight's purposes, because of time, we're only going to focus on 3 of the objectives. Under each objective, there are policies, as I said, that were measurable, and also talk about who's responsible for it. And you can read this particular goal and its objectives and policies on the website or the connection that we've provided. So I hope you'll go back and do that. But let's take a look at just one of the objectives to start with. First one I want to call your attention to is objective 1, and that is establishing measures for public trust and citizen participation. Whether you work here or you live here or you visit here, we all have an investment in this barrier island with its limited capacity. As I noted before, we've noticed the significant population growth, which has really put a strain on our natural resources and on our people resources. This particular objective then gets into what each department is currently doing. It's encouraging staff to take a look at what they're doing and what is suitable, what's a suitable plan to build trust in their particular department. So in other words, what's suitable for one department may not be effective in another department. But when you put all of those department plans together, you can certainly come up with a broader coordinated plan then for the whole city, which we could see that plan would be developed. We also see that these plans should be based on research, on community discussions and staff discussion and training. It's also very easy to say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. But it's also helpful to go back and take at the research and to really what we call peel the onion to see if we can determine what would be either more effective or implement a plan in a different way. It's also in terms of accountability, these processes must be followed annually, evaluated annually for 5 years, and then we would propose after 5 years that we take a look at those plans on a biennial basis. The second goal or objective that we want to take a look at is called integrity and performance. And we're also looking at measurable policies. So in this particular objective, we're talking about 3 key features that I really want you to focus on. One is that all the policies and procedures must promote high standards of integrity and performance. Decisions must be made at all levels that are based on the city charter, the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and any other city ordinance and policies. We are proposing utilizing multiple supportive and best practices, and that we provide every employee with clear descriptions of their responsibilities that relate back to the city comp plan. And that will then really emphasize the integrity of their work. And lastly, requiring any city employee, commissioner, or board member to recuse themselves from any decision making where they have a vested interest or relationship in the project. Give you a minute just to digest that. The next objective is actually objective number 6. And this is one where we're promoting the creation of a chief financial officer or CFO. And in this particular objective, we have listed out position and policies. Now, when I spoke earlier about that often the plans overlap, or you can find one topic in one area and another, and also find it in another area, this is a good example. So you'll find the CFO in public trust, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But you can also find more details about this position in our economic section. But you can also see this position listed in some of the other elements, such as transportation. So it's important to take a look at this as a leadership position that crosses all parts of the departments and all parts of the comprehensive plan, the city charter, and our total government. Ideally, we would see this position as being in the charter. that it would be parallel to the city manager, to the city attorney, and the city clerk. But we also know that realistically, knowing budget constraints, that this may be a position that can be hired or utilized through an assistant city manager, which is already in the budget. But let me go over a little bit of why we see this as a crucial leadership position. We see this as a person who oversees finance and budget. Is a person who shows leadership in long-term planning, that shows high-level strategic planning, a great knowledge in economics and microeconomics. Someone who is familiar with how municipalities work, and to have effective communication, not only with city staff and city departments, but also with the public in terms of fiscal and economic issues. And another critical element for this position is to have a CFO that because they're employed on a barrier island, that they have an understanding of the environment, environmental sustainability, and resilience. I want to make note of the fact that the county has just hired someone as their assistant county manager who comes to the table with these skills. So they too have recognized that this is an important part of running the government and helping to set long-term planning, and have utilized a position that was already in the budget. So with that, there are some references. I may have gone too fast. I just want to remind people, since we brought up the charter of the voting that will be coming up soon. If you're seeing this after, or if you're like me, you wake up in the middle of the night or the next day and you have questions, that you can still give us feedback by contacting us at Save the Trees at Amelia Tree Conservancy. You'll also be receiving a survey, and we really do value your feedback, as I'm sure the city does also. And with that, I believe, I don't have a list of all the participants that are here, but I believe that Kelly Gibson, who's our Director of City Planning, is here. And Kelly, I wonder if you have anything that you would like to say about the process, or is she here?
It says she's logged in. Kelly, if you can hear us, you're still on mute.
Oh, she's on mute. I see her. I see her now. So Kelly, if
Kelly's managing family at the same time.
oh, well, we all understand that too.
But maybe
yes.
she'll pop up.
She'll pop up in a minute. And of course, we all know about that, right? Yes. Yeah, we all know about that. So do we have any questions at this point while we wait for Kelly?
I think we should see what comments or questions people have,
Yeah.
whether they are about your element, restoring public trust, and what they've seen. We do have some experts here, and maybe they could share what they've seen in other cities in Florida, or in terms of public trust, or maybe somebody might want to comment on the vision statement. Any of that would be welcome.
And at this time, if anybody wants to speak up, go ahead and unmute yourselves. We'd love to hear back from you. Or not.
And just as an aside, as I mentioned before, the next 3 weeks we'll be going over the other elements. So you'll have an opportunity um, to, to hear about those goals and objectives and policies. We just got a quick message from someone, I'm sorry, I lost the chat, saying thank you for addressing public trust. And we would agree with that. I mean, when we started off, it was, you know, one way that you address a problem is by looking at it, you know, and certainly we heard a lot of feedback from the ERA meetings, but also from other meetings in the city. And that I hate to bring up social media, but at times even on social media. So I think it's a good start. So Mr. Staten,
Yes, Staten, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yes, I agree with the last comment. It's good to see have public trust front and center to address it, which I'm very impressed with that. Question, we use the word city. I'm in this city now, but I've been living in the county. So who can participate in this discussion? If it says city, so I'm assuming you're speaking of the city of Fernandina, not county residents. So help me, please clarify that for me.
Margaret, you want to?
Yeah, we are providing input for both the city and the county, but the city is in the process of working on their comprehensive plan now. So we're starting with this. And my own, so, you know, the citizens of the city are the ones who can vote on these things and sometimes have more voice. But frankly, we live on a very small island, and it is to a large extent one community. And I think whatever happens in the city impacts the county, whatever happens in the county impacts people in the city. That's a point that Lori made. And I think it's important for us to be aware. We all need to get some of these concepts together and get them in both the city comprehensive plan and the county comprehensive plan. And so if we're starting with this gives us a chance to discuss, to get some information, to do some research, and hopefully also get it in the county. Often what I've seen happen over the past 7 years or so is something comes up and happens in the city. You get a new ordinance or something, and then the planning department and the county will pick up on it and carry it forward, or vice versa. So, and I hope there will be more interface like that in the future. But that's a great question.
It is a great question, and I would add to it that in both plans, and you'll really see this as we move along, that there are policies that deal with intergovernmental communication. So there is that recognition, even through the plan, that we have to communicate. We have to work together. I mean, just think about our roads. I think that's often the easiest one to throw out to people. Our beaches, you know, who's responsible for the beaches. But your question is really good in terms of just the day-to-day practice. So if there's a new building that's coming up next door to me, but it's a county building, I might not be the one notified, but the people that are in the county are notified. So that's just a simple way of saying that we're really trying to encourage, you know, communication amongst citizens with both the city and the county, and then the county and the city and other jurisdictions as well. So
It's important for us to be communicating, and I mean, in our group, within this group that's worked on this, it started out about half and half city and county folks, but you know, it takes all of us. This is the island we all live on, and it's so small. So I think it's important that we all participate.
Great question.
Let's see, who's, Kelly is.
Kelly has her hand up. Kelly, we're recognizing you. Go ahead.
Oh, Kelly, we can't hear you.
Oh, are you muted, or is she muted or not?
Not on our end, no.
Kelly?
Now she's muted. Now you're muted, Kelly.
It's okay. She might be trying to reset her audio.
Sorry.
Hear me now? Is
Yeah.
that
There
any
we go.
Yeah.
Right, thank
Okay,
you.
awesome. Sorry, I was trying to communicate through some earbuds previously. Thank you for recognizing me. I did not really expect that, but that's fantastic. And I guess the only comments that I would love to offer is just that of thanks, genuine thanks. Thank you to everyone who has spent more than a year now putting time and energy and research and looking for data that really serves to address where you are at as both as a group and also as individuals in service of the best interests for our community. And I'm so thankful for the dialogue that this opportunity presents for all of us to get together, to meet new people. It looks like there was about 24 people on this call, which is really impressive. And so congratulations on that. I'm thrilled to hear some of the questions and feedback that we are getting. And I look forward to anyone who might have questions outside of this meeting. You are always welcome to contact me. As Ms. Kirkland knows, I have very much an open door policy. I actively encourage meetings so that we can better understand various topics, perspectives of our community, and learn from each other. We have a wealth of knowledge here, and I am constantly impressed by the knowledge base that is present within our community. And so I learn something new every single day. So this is just a great opportunity. Thank you.
I have to say that we have learned something new every single day too, and we are still learning. And I think, you know, that is the value of doing something like this is we learn how to more effectively communicate in the area where we live. Are there other questions or comments?
Eric Schmidt has posted a comment.
Who? Oh,
Eric Schmidt is asking, he said that I heard a discussion of the economic value of environmental and social goals, but not about the impact on the ad valorem tax base, business fees, and business income. And I think that's a really great question. And if I could just jump in for a second,
yeah.
I think that this is one of the underlying reasons why we came to the conclusion that perhaps our community is at a tipping point where we really do need a chief financial officer. Those are the types of questions that as citizens who don't have those specialty skills, we aren't necessarily getting to the answers, nor are we going to be able to understand the solutions for how to put that out over a timeline effectively. I'll pick on resilience. We have to do something at Front Street and the Amelia River, whether we like it or not. Understanding what those impacts would be are more than an accounting question. And I think that this points to why we need that chief financial officer working with the commissioners, working with the city manager, and trying to get to the very answers that Mr. Schmidt is looking for.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that. I think that was good. Thanks.
I think it's the same question that we have often, yes.
One thing I think, Mr. Schmidt, you'll definitely want to come into the discussion on the economy, because we see the economy in such a holistic way, and truly appreciate the diverse economy we have, stretching from mills to self-employed individuals to small businesses, etc. And we did feel that the previous comprehensive plan, or the current comprehensive plan, doesn't reflect the particular economy we have right now. Perhaps we don't need more hotels, perhaps we need more support for the current businesses we do have.
I wanted to note an additional comment from Mr. Schmidt, including people who work in the city but live outside the city limits in the process is a great idea. This is the thing. Some people have had to move off island because of the cost of living here. Some people just simply don't want to be on island, and yet they're integral parts of the economy and the community. So I'm not sure how we do this, but if we talk about it and we try to achieve our goals, then hopefully we'll be able to find some strategies for doing that more successfully. Thank you. Anybody else? Did anybody have comments about the what is it? The vision plan, the vision statement?
James, do you want to go ahead?
Well, no, in the vision statement, I'm trying to think of one that I could recite back. It was pretty long, so I know it was probably the first draft, first run, but it was pretty inclusive. But it may not be one that I could quote back to. Somebody asked me what's the vision, and I wouldn't be able to. I would have to pull up and read it. You understand what I'm saying? I think it's pretty detailed in that vision statement. And one observation is in a way we could shorten that statement.
So I think what you're asking for is the Reader's Digest condensed version,
Yes.
the 30-second elevator speech.
Yes, where we could remember, and what is your vision? What is the vision of what are you trying to do in this public space? And then we could tell them. We could tell them. But that was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. I think it's a great suggestion, and I think that certainly as one of the people on the committee that generated all of this, that certainly is something that we could work on. And of course, the city themselves will be tackling that. In fact, I think I saw today that is, and maybe Kelly Gibson can come back and circle back on this, I think that is one of the things that they are prioritizing near term, is to define that vision statement and perhaps, come up with that short, succinct version.
But I like the fact, actually, the one that they have now is very similar in length, maybe actually longer. And I like the thought of maybe we do need something that is that length or similar to that length to make sure we get all of the issues included. But we should be able to sort of superordinate and come up with a more general and more succinct version. And I like that notion because that would be something that people could remember.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So great suggestion. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And one other observation now with this, I think this is city bringing more diversity. Tell me more about the diversity piece that you have in mind. That diversity means a lot to a lot of people, and it's interpreted totally different by different people. So what are we speaking of when we speak of How the diverse staff are bringing more diversity into this public trust work?
I think probably all of us can answer that. I'll get it started from one level, and then there'll be others behind me. But one piece of it is like I said, or what we wrote, which was the city officials. You know, when you look at our city government who's sitting on the different boards, that's one thing. But the other piece that we were taking a look at is just the history of our island and how diverse it is. And are we getting feedback and input from our different neighborhoods? Because we really have some incredible, rich, diverse neighborhoods. And yet, if you go to a meeting, you might not see the representation. And then it's what can we do to be creative to get into the communities, to develop the trust and to get the feedback before we make, you know, decisions. So that's my simple answer.
Sure, appreciate that. Thank you.
Alex, you want to
Yes,
join in?
I think one of the great, if you talk about assets of the city and really of the island, is the historic African American communities, not only American Beach, but also right here in Fernandina with Peck High School. And there's some reflection of it, obviously, in the museum and in our self-descriptions. But what would be great, if following on what Lori Hemke said, is that if we could truly recognize more than just in the month of February, this aspect of our history and of our value, of our culture, it would be really, really enriching for the city and for the island. As an example, I have a friend and she says, it's funny, I go to my events in my say business gatherings or in my church gatherings or in my festivals, and I don't always see a lot of city officials attending our community events. And I'd like to see more of the city officials at our events. And then we will reciprocate. We'll go to your events. Let's show interest and respect for each other. So it's not as though we should just wait and say, well, aren't you interested? We need to outreach and connect. And so I'm very excited about this aspect of the new comprehensive plan, and I can't say enough good things about it. And we need even more input of this nature.
We need a lot.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Mr. Stanton that if he has specific thoughts about how we could improve what the work that we have already done in some specific ways to encourage that diversity. Our group would love to hear from you. We'll take any detailed, specific types of suggestions you might have for any of the various elements and be happy to try to weave those in if where you see they might be lacking. That's the point of making this a public discussion.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I apologize, I don't know that much, excuse me, about, again, more of the work that you all have done. And I do appreciate seeing that, the diversity. And another word is inclusiveness too. That goes well. And I appreciate, again, you being candid, you being honest, that our city leaders should reflect our communities. But we know that's a very different process on how people are elected. And just, for example, people won't go to museums if they don't see any reflection of their community and their culture. Right. And so this is what we were talking about in public trust and inviting the community in. I don't see anyone like me, or I don't see that I'm represented here. And so that's the challenge for all of us, especially in this on this island, to celebrate that. The festivals are fine. The festivals are fine, but the people, they're not there. I don't see any brown leaders. I'm seeing the black leaders are brown leaders. I just see all white leaders on a diverse island. So that's a challenge that we
don't disagree with you. and that's why I say, you know, as we go through this process for the next several Thursday nights, where the different elements are going to continue to be presented, when you see opportunities, when you come up with some great suggestions, we're all about it. Send it to us, and we will do our best to, you know, make sure that it becomes a part of the larger process when the city starts working through the whole thing.
And we would be happy to meet with you individually. You know,
Yes.
we do need more input on that area, and it is the lack of inclusiveness and representation is a loss for all of us. Okay, it is not just a loss for those who are not there. It is a loss for everyone.
Yes, and again, thank you all for this opportunity.
Thank you. Carlton, you have your hand up.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the trust issue, because if you can't reach some level of trust in your public officials and your citizens, then it's hard to be successful. So one of the ways to do it, and we're not alone, this is around the country, that's probably the #1 problem in most communities, is that word called trust. But you can sort of break those barriers by, #1, making that, you know, you sort of have to be honest and create a atmosphere so that you're not criticized, but, you know, you just give your perspective. But once you do that, I think public and citizen engagement is the next step to building that trust. If you don't build relationships and get to know someone on a personal level, as well as, you know, okay, you don't have a representative from maybe, I'm trying to think of a community, but you seek someone, invite them into the conversation. And I know for American Beach, we've tried to encourage our members to, and property owners, to get involved in issues, even if it doesn't affect American Beach, because you can build relationships and bridges, because you may be a voice that is welcome to solve someone else's problem. And then when you have a problem in your community, you have someone that'll reciprocate. And again, everything really begins with a conversation. And secondly, you got to show up. You can't just, you know, I've been to so many community meetings where all you have is the politicians. And so they're going to do what they want to do. They're not hearing from the community. Or if they are, it's a small sampling of the community. And, you know, so public engagement is good. And how do you create those forums? You know, normally it's centered around a hot issue that stirs that interest. But I think we need to encourage people to come and be a voice, even if it, you know, we live in the county, but even for the city. One of the things I am impressed with is the planning and zoning new team, because they are taking examples from what's going on in Fernandina as well as the county, and they're trying to create some common synergy, especially with land use. So, you know, we're moving in the right direction. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, we just need to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we appreciate your participation. And I would say that, you know, as part of the message that you receive after the session will be a link to the elements. Please go over goal 1 and see what input you have. I know I personally tried to get you engaged in this process, but you're a little bit too busy. But maybe you could look at what we have in element 1 and see if you have strategies for improving it. And then we can integrate some of those things for both the city and the county. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I know we're over time, so we just want to thank everybody again for their participation tonight, to Margaret and Lori for their presentation. I'm just going to drop a link to the feedback survey in the chat. We'll also send that to you as a follow-up email, in addition to links again to both the introduction and goal 1 of the draft plans. And again, we would appreciate your feedback any way you'd like to give it to us, by email. I'll be happy to schedule a meeting. Even if you just want to make some notes and send those up, we'd love to have that. But thanks very much, everyone, for your time tonight. Again, we have on the next 3 Thursdays, additional elements will be presented by members of the working group, and you can sign up for those using the tool. We'll make sure the link goes out in the email as well if you haven't already signed up for them. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody. I
Thank
think the
you.
Thank you
discussion
for
was
coming,
very
everybody.
valuable for us.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.